Hey guys, welcome back to For StarCraft 2 Strategy, your number one location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at some Zerg play. Basically we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg extended game, moving into the mid to late game. We're going to be looking at Infestors and Ultralisks even. I know a lot of people were wondering why we didn't have much late game tech play. I guess primarily is because a lot of the times games don't get to that stage. That really only happens if both players are of equal skill level and if both players are capable of stopping early game cheese. And a lot of times games end within the first 10 or 15 minutes because of a strong push that the opponent wasn't properly prepared for. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at a pretty long, drawn-out game. A few key notes that we're going to be looking at here. We're going to be looking at starting with the Speedling Mutalisk build. We're facing a Terran opponent in this game, and again, this replay is of a game between Cats as the Zerg player and Silver is our Terran player. Both very, very strong StarCraft 2 players. So we're going to be starting off with the Speedling into the Muta, trying to contain the Terran opponent with the threat of Speedling running into their base and the Mutalisk basically being able to swoop in, pick off buildings, and harass the worker line. And then after that, we're going to be transitioning into we're going to continue with the Speedling Muta, but we're going to transition into getting Infestors, and then at the end of the game, we're going to be looking at some Ultralisk play as well. And basically some key things to note here are the containment of our Terran opponent. That's what we're going to be looking at. Constant harassment of the mineral line, starting with harassment using the Mutalisks, later using Zerglings as the Terran opponent tries to push out. We're going to use Zerglings to run to their expansions and harass the mineral lines. And then even further down the road, we'll be looking at using Infestor's fungal growth and the infested Terran abilities to harass mineral lines. So basically, I mean, what we're trying to do here as the Zerg player is contain the Terran opponent, mass expand across the map, and then harass their minerals as much as possible to delay their resources, really hurt their resources, and get that economic advantage from both having those extra expansions and from killing off their workers that are trying to gather resources. So yeah, what we're going to be starting off with, again, we're looking to get that Speedling Mutalisk build is what we're starting out with. So as you can see, our spawning pools come in, and we do have both extractors up. We're going to be saturating those fully. If you're trying to get a lot of fast Mutalisks, you need a lot of gas. So getting those two extractors up as quickly as possible is definitely going to be beneficial to you. Now, as you can see, the Terran player in here is trying to move in, dropping a bunker here. He's actually going to be trying to move in with some Marines early game to try to do some harassment. And this is something that you're going to see a lot of looking at professional players play. They do so much early game aggression, usually even with just moving in with just one Marine or moving in with one Zealot or a couple of Zerglings. They always put on early game aggression, and I think that's something that players really need to take note of and try to implement themselves. The only danger being that if doing this early game aggression is going to set your macro too far behind, basically if it's going to stop you from producing buildings and units because you can't micro and macro properly at the same time, then you want to avoid doing this. But if you get to once you get to that point where you're capable of attacking and still building things at the right times and staying on top of your macro, then this is kind of going to be the position you want to be in, trying to do that early harass, trying to basically set the other player off of their game and try to throw them off their timings is essentially what you're looking to do. So as you can see here, our spawning pool has been created. We did start researching that metabolic boost to try to give our Zerglings some early speed upgrade, and we are upgrading to the Lair at this point. Now once the Lair comes up, that's when we're going to be dropping down our Spire and switching to the Mutalisks. Now we're not starting the game off by getting a ton of Zerglings because we don't really need them. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to scout these Zelnaga towers, we're going to keep an eye on them, see if any pushes are coming. If we saw something coming at us, then we would make some emergency Zerglings because they do build so quickly. At that point we'd make some emergency Zerglings, but at the moment basically what we're concentrating on trying to do is trying to get those Mutalisks up as quickly as possible. Now taking a look at our Terran opponent here, as you can see, he also has both refineries up. He's got this orbital command up, gathering from his first base. He's creating this interesting little wall off. I actually like this, pretty interesting play. Going to do pretty well against Banelings, as it takes a lot of Banelings to bust through these two buildings, as opposed to the amount of banelings that it takes to bust through a supply depot. So kind of walling off here with these 2 production buildings and the 1 bunker there that he could go ahead and fill with Marines as well. What we're going to be seeing here from the Terran players, he's going to be starting off with that Marine tank build. He's going to be doing some dropping with a bunch of Marines and a couple of tanks, trying to basically harass the natural expansion that we're going for here. And that puts me right into the fact that we're expanding. We're going to go for that fast expansion right around the same time that we drop the Spire down. And don't worry, once I do get this replay up, we're going to go ahead and put that exact build order so you can see when we dropped that hatchery. But again, what we're going to be doing is, while we're building this Spire, we're going to be sitting on some extra resources. And since we're not too worried about an early game push, since we're scouting here, we did move up. This is what we saw. Doesn't look like he's going to be pushing out anytime within the next couple of minutes. So we feel safe in not creating any additional Zerglings for the time being. Using those resources instead to expand to that hatchery, try to get an economic advantage. And then also, since Mutalisks do cost so much Vespian, mining out of just these 2 extractors isn't going to really be enough to keep up any decent Mutalisk count. So we're definitely going to want that expansion to take advantage of these extra geysers here. Another key thing to note, I've mentioned this in the prior videos, going ahead and trying to build that Spire away from your main buildings, really good idea. Using that Overlord, the generate creep ability, and basically building a Spire somewhere that they're not likely to scan, because generally if a Terran player scans your base, he's going to scan right around your central base. I would even possibly suggest placing it in like a corner like over here or over here, because sometimes the player will scan right in between your base and your natural just to see if you have an expansion up. Dropping a scan here is pretty probable, and if that happens, then he is going to see the Spire right here at the beginning. But not terrible placement. Again, the main fact is that it's away from this this central location, so that if you do get a scan right on top, he's not going to see it. So as you can see, we went ahead and we produced some Mutalisks. We have 5 on the board now. Now here's that point I was talking about. The Terran player is pushing out with some Marines as well as the siege tank, trying to harass our expansion here, trying to stop it from going up. These 5 Mutalisks are going to be too much for him to handle with this. Since he put so many resources into getting that medevac, he's lacking on the Marine count. So if looking back at his base, he doesn't have a ton of Marines. Seeing that we did have those Mutalisks there, he is going to go ahead and create Viking and coming out with some more Marines as well. That is the proper response to seeing those Mutalisks. He's going to have to do all he can to fend it off. Also, he did drop down an engineering base, so he's going to be able to try to put some turrets up. But basically what we're going to try to do here is move in with these Mutalisks and do as much damage as possible. Going to be killing off the SCV that's trying to build that turret. We do kind of have to pull away from these Marines and this Viking though, because they will do a lot of damage. But while moving away, we're still trying to pick off things as we go. I'm trying to do as much damage to these workers as possible, take out as many workers as possible, and basically put these guys to use. We invest in minerals, and then we want to make them a productive part of our army. So trying to harass as much as possible is what we're trying to do here. And going back to what I was just saying, trying to make all your units as productive as possible, make them worth their weight in gold. These Zerglings here, we created early on to fend off any early aggression, but since they weren't really doing anything, instead of just having them sit around in our base hanging out, we went ahead and brought them to these destructible rocks and started picking it off. That's just a kind of a small, subtle little thing that you kind of get to learn over time, taking full advantage of your units and not having anything wasted. So as you can see here, looking back at our base, we do finally have this natural saturated, and we actually went ahead and switched right into an infestation pit. We did see that they were going for kind of a Marine heavy with a little bit of siege tank and some Vikings. That's what we saw. Now, getting these Infestors are going to be really, really good for 2 reasons. One, they do a lot of damage versus any bio units, so they're going to do a lot of damage to these Marines. But also, using the Infestor's fungal growth ability, it's going to allow us to kind of stop any advancements, at least temporarily. So for example, if he was pushing up with his army, as you can just see, he did get a Thor out. If he decided to push up with some siege tanks and the Thor and a couple Vikings and Marines, we could drop a fungal growth on those units and then run our Zerglings around into his base and try to do as much damage as possible. He won't be able to chase us with all of his units until the fungal growth dies off, because if you don't know already, fungal growth, besides doing damage over time, it also locks you in place. It stops your units from moving. So that's going to allow for additional harass. In fact, what you're going to see later in the game is at some point the Terran player does push, and we're going to use the fact that he's advanced on us to use our Speedlings to go harass his minerals. So taking a look here, we did finally take down those destructible rocks with those Zerglings and the Mutalisks. And we are going to go ahead and expand once more. So again, we're taking advantage of the fact that with these Speedlings and the Mutalisks, our Terran players kind of forced to play a little defensively. They're kind of afraid to move out for fear of a counterattack, and we're going to use that to our advantage by expanding hard. And now, as you can see, he did just take down this destructible rocks, but we already have a base up, and we're already in the process of saturating it. So we are at the economic advantage there. Coming out with some Infestors now, trying to probably create like 4 or 5. That's a good number. You obviously don't want 20 Infestors, because then you won't have any attacking units. 4 or 5 Infestors is going to be really good. It'll allow you to drop a lot of fungal growth. Also, using that infested Terran ability can be very strong in certain situations. Now moving out, still trying to do a little bit of harass with these Mutalisks. Again, trying to take advantage of them. I mean, we did spend resources on them. We want to use them to the best of our ability. Unfortunately, that Thor does engage, pull those units forward, and we do lose some Mutalisks due to those Marines and that Thor. We want to try to avoid that from happening. In that situation, while these Mutalisks were down here, it would have been actually really good if we had moved down into this gold expansion and tried to pick off these workers, delaying the production of these buildings. But he was obviously concentrating on other things, as you can see here. Working on a lot of productions, getting our upgrades here with the adrenal glands. Also getting, whoa geez, bouncing all over the place. Also getting the carapace level 1 and the melee attack level 1. The ventral sacs to go ahead and use for some droppage, for some Overlord droppage, which we're going to see later on in the game. So moving out again with these Mutalisks, and again taking advantage of the fact that our Terran player is forced to kind of play defensively because of the threat of Speedlings and Mutalisks, and we are getting that additional expansion. So that's kind of really the basis behind the Speedling Mutalisk build versus Terran players. As a Zerg player, you have that speed and that ability to hit hard and fast from various different angles. I mean, you can run into a natural with these Speedlings, kill off all the workers, and then you could hit from the other side with the Mutalisks, maybe fly down here and do damage to this mineral line. And that's the real threat. And honestly, Terran is pretty immobile in comparison to a Speedling Mutalisk build. They're pretty immobile in comparison, and that's basically why it's effective. I mean, they're kind of slow moving. They don't really have a lot of fast air units in this particular type of build. It's even extrapolated even more so if they go straight mech. If you have a Terran opponent who's going for straight up mech, getting Thors, Hellions, and Siege Tanks, they are very immobile, and you can really abuse that Speedling Baneling. The thing you really want to avoid is getting in straight up confrontations with them, getting in straight up battles. You need to get a surround, and you need to harass and pick off. That's kind of the goal. We moved up, we saw that they were advancing here, and we dropped that fungal growth on their units. Again, that's going to do so much damage to these bio units. It's also going to immobilize them for a short amount of time. Now we are seeing that they're advancing here, taking a look at our vision. We do know that they're moving up. We had the Siege Tanks kill off a Zergling that we had on the Zelnaga Tower. Now this is the part I was talking about. In seeing that they've moved up and they've advanced to this position, we're going to be taking our Speedlings, running into their base, and trying to do as much damage to their mineral line as possible. Now I did miss noting it in everything that was going on, but we have, of course, created our Ultralisk cavern here, and we do have some Ultralisks coming out. Ultralisks going to do very well, very hefty unit versus the Siege Tanks and the Thors, especially with those Speedlings getting a surround on the units as well. But as you can see, we moved in here, we took out everything, almost all the workers that were in this gold expansion. We're going to be moving right into his natural as well, using our Speedlings to take out all the workers over here. And this is exactly what I was talking about, the fact that Terran can be so immobile in